Hi, everyone. Welcome, and thanks so much for joining us today. My name is Grace Chunfoff, and I am on the Talent Solutions marketing team here at LinkedIn. I'm excited to be here with my colleagues Joe Rocha and Alan Beers. They are both part of our recruitment product consultant team here at LinkedIn, and they will be walking you through the majority of today's presentation. So just as a heads up, there are some things that will be specific to the paid product on this webcast, but holistically, the concepts can be applied to both the free and paid products. Joe and Alan will be touching a little bit more on that as they go through the presentation, but just so you guys are aware. Also, before we get started, a few housekeeping items. You are all muted by default, so if you could please enter your questions and comments into the chat box on the right-hand side. Once again, the chat box, not the Q&A. And be sure to address them to all panelists. Joe and Alan will actually do their best to get to your questions as they walk through the presentation, and we'll also have some time at the end for Q&A. And last but not least, we'll be sending out a recording within the next couple of days, so you can view this at your leisure, so look out for those in your inbox. And Alan and Joe, I'll let you guys take it from here. Thanks so much.
All right. Perfect. Thanks, Grace. Well, listen, everyone, welcome. Thanks for joining today. Just a quick introduction. Again, my name's Joe. I'm on the product team here at LinkedIn, and I actually have a background in recruiting spanning over 8 years. I actually used Recruiter and LinkedIn quite heavily in previous stops. So my job now is to talk through best practices and work with recruiters on fully leveraging LinkedIn as a sourcing and as a messaging platform. So I'm happy to spend some time with you today.
Hey, thanks, Joe. And this is Alan Beers over at LinkedIn. I'm the guy you're probably tired of hearing from. So for those of you that don't know me, I've been with LinkedIn for about 2 years now. Before that, it was all recruiting out of college. So definitely happy to be talking to you again today, going through some best practices on search, social InMailing. It's a pleasure to get to present to you tandem with Joe Rocha as well. So, you know, we all kind of have different workflows. We've got different methodologies that we present, and I'm really excited to hear what he has to say.
Awesome. Thanks, Alan. And so there are minor league baseball teams across the country that would love to get the type of attendance that we're going to enjoy on today's webcast. So I'm happy to have a chance to talk to this large of an audience, maybe the largest audience I've personally ever spoke to. But, you know, there's been a lot of talk around fully leveraging LinkedIn from a search and in-mail standpoint. And, you know, to us, you know, it's really kind of it's a larger picture when you talk about recruiting on LinkedIn. You know, yes, we want to use search to find the best candidates, but we always need to be thinking about the type of conversation that we're going to be starting once we find those individuals. Right? As recruiters, it's one thing to find the needle in the haystack, but then we've got to sell that needle in the haystack on having a conversation with us, the recruiting professional. And so for all of you out there, you know, when you think about search and you think about InMail, you should think about it together, almost as a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, if you will. So let's talk a little bit about advanced search. What exactly is advanced search? So I think it could mean something different from recruiter to recruiter, really depending on your level of experience, the type of position that you're recruiting on, or maybe just your level of comfortability with that tool that you're using to recruit or source. I think many times when Alan and I work with recruiters, their first assumption is that advanced search basically looks something like this, right? A long, complex, never-ending Boolean string. And while this might be a great string, and it's pretty comprehensive, and it encompasses a lot of different things that may encompass the candidate we're looking for. So things like keywords, skills, companies they may be coming from, natural language. This is really only the beginning of advanced search. So the core question we want to leave you with and have you always have in the back of your mind when you're sourcing, especially on LinkedIn, is why does the average person join LinkedIn? Right? We're a network of a ton of active candidates, but there are even more passive candidates. So why is the average person joining? So it seems like a pretty simple question. And I think as a lot of you on the call know, a lot of people join LinkedIn for the social networking aspect. They're not necessarily coming to LinkedIn filling out their profile as if it were a resume. So I'm not sure how many of you on the call are familiar with the Boolean black belt, Glenn Cathy. He's kind of a thought leader in the search and recruitment industry. But he said something on one of his workshops that I attended that's kind of stuck with me. And his point essentially was, every day that we're searching, whether it's LinkedIn or it's some other medium, we're missing potential candidates in the searches we run, because every search you run might exclude qualified people. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you run a search and that search returns 500 people. Well, your search worked, right? And you probably found some pretty good people in that search. But after that search, the second thing you should think about is, hey, I wonder if some really good people were excluded because I didn't include search terms, or maybe some shorthand, or maybe an abbreviation to find them, because the search terms that I did use, they didn't stay on their profile. So we can't fully leverage LinkedIn if all we're doing is logging in, running searches, finding some candidates, and then just sending InMail. Because really, on a network of 313 million members, with a growth rate roughly of 2 new members per second, we're really just scratching the surface. And we're essentially trying to paddle across the ocean in a kayak with no map to really give us any type of direction. So advanced search is having a map, having that right vessel, and setting out on a carefully crafted voyage. So that long Boolean search string, that's just the beginning. Advanced search is really what you see here on your screen. It's having a simple, repeatable process that you can use every time to make sure you're casting a wide net, and then all along the way making sure that you're saving all of the workflow that you've created, and that you've got a process not only to message those individuals once you've found them, but then follow up. Because unfortunately, not every candidate is going to get right back to us, as you all well know, no matter how well worded our message is. So again, advanced search is what you see here on your screen. It's a simple, repeatable process that we can duplicate every time and use every time we have a new requisition that comes across our desk. So making sure that we've got the appropriate keywords and marrying them with the right modifiers. Applying refinement filters. Alan's going to get in depth and talk about some real intricate ways you're going to be able to use these filters to have some real in-depth conversations that are going to get interest and help you start a conversation with those candidates you're going after. But then
Joe, and if I could jump in on that point too, as well. We had a lot of feedback from the last session. So some of this content that I'm going to talk about from an email perspective might seem like a repeat, but we took a look at the voice survey that we sent out after the last session and really understand that you want to see more concrete examples of actual templates that you can utilize when you're clicking on all of these different filters that sort of breed those commonalities between you and the candidates you want to reach out to. So we took that feedback. We really appreciate it, and that's why we called this session today, is to take some of that content after Joe shows you how to find the deeply hidden individuals. Then I'm going to jump on and talk a little bit more about, okay, let's talk about those filters that we discussed last session. And for you that weren't on it, we'll retread over it a little bit. But now, what are some actual tangible templates that you can utilize to be able to get a strong response rate?
Perfect. Thanks, Alan. And then saving all of that work that you're doing, right? So within LinkedIn.com, the free product, I believe you can save about 3 searches, set 3 search alerts. Within the LinkedIn Recruiter platform, you can save an unlimited amount of searches and set up to 50 search alerts. Those alerts are really important because, one, they tell you when somebody new has just joined LinkedIn that matches your search criteria, and the other thing is it tells you if they've made some type of change. They've added something to their profile that now matches your search criteria. Whether we run a really specific search or we run a more broad conceptual search, we're always going to need to review profiles for relevancy and leveraging things like the clipboard within Recruiter or projects within Recruiter. And then that final piece, which is sending the InMail. So again, this is truly advanced search. It's not running one search, skinning the top, and hoping that that's going to fill out our call sheet. It's really having this process baked in. And I think this is going to make more sense as we kind of transition here and we look at the next slide. So we've really identified 3 cornerstone searches that we think you should be running for each requisition that you work on. So you don't necessarily have to limit yourself to these three. Again, within the free LinkedIn.com site, you can save about 3 searches and set 3 alerts. If you have the recruiter product, you may want to expand on this a little bit. But these are really where you should be starting. When that requisition, when that order comes across your desk for that finance person or that traveling nurse or that Java developer or that outside sales representative, you should be thinking of 3 different ways you can start to attack that search, break results into chunks, and then make sure that you're taking this kind of implemented approach to making sure that you're not missing anyone that might be on the network. So the first search we're going to talk about is the ideal candidate search. So this is going to be a highly specific search that's going to return a lower volume of candidates, but it's going to be of a higher quality. And that's because essentially in this search you're looking to essentially clone the top performer in that position at that company. So at that client site, whoever that ideal person might be, you're trying to clone that person in that search. So what do I mean by that? You're using a job title that mirrors that of the job description. You're using very specific keywords from the job description. You're even including the education, right, the degree that they might be asking for, and then the amount of years of experience. So again, this is going to be a low volume search, but this is one we're going to want to run, find the amount of people in that geography that we're looking, and then save that search. The next one is going to be a conceptual search. So this has to do with pulling additional ways that a job or a skill or an experience can be expressed, whether it's expressed in different crossover industries where other candidates might be a fit for your opening, or maybe it's at another company where they call things or use different vernacular. So really this is about leveraging that OR modifier. So we're talking about Boolean here, leveraging that OR modifier to expand your search to include multiple terms. And this is going to bring back more candidates that, again, may have those crossover skills that might make a match for the position. In this search, again, we're going to have a higher volume, but it's going to require that we focus on relevancy. So we're still going to make sure that we do that deep dive, vet that profile out, rather than just sending out an InMail right after we get those search results. And then finally, a smart exclusion search. So this has to do with taking all of the results from the conceptual search we just ran, right? So all of the different job titles, the different ways a skill set can be expressed, and then focusing on the people on LinkedIn who use shorthand or abbreviations or maybe alternate spellings of their titles or experience. Because again, going back to our last point on a previous slide, some of the best talent on LinkedIn isn't reflected by the best looking LinkedIn profile. Meaning that there are a ton of talented people on LinkedIn who don't use robust spelling or specific keywords, things that we think intuitively they would have on their profile. And so this is going to allow us to find potential hidden gems who may not have that type of vernacular. They may have shortened or used a shoestring type of profile. They simply jumped on, created their profile, and they're here. So some examples of this that you may use in a search would be, rather than spelling engineer, calling it ENGR or ENG-R. Or instead of registered nurse, REG nurse. Or the shorthand for accountant, which is the ACCT. So we're going to leverage
to that point.
Yeah, jump in.
To that point as well, it just kind of goes along with the shorthand piece. I'm getting a lot of questions on the chat panel around it. How do we find those active seekers and how would that fit into our Boolean string? Since there aren't really any filters that you can click on to find active talent, you can click on some filters that are going to get you consultants and contractors, which I'll discuss briefly today, and Joe might go into that during the into the live demo. But really you want to take those terms like looking, searching for assignment, searching for work, new assignment, so on and so forth, and add those to your Boolean term at the end of that skill string that you're putting together. So Joe's going to show you some really good examples when we get into the tool of a skill string that you can put together, but you would just want to think about adding those active seeker terms and that kind of vernacular. And you would be surprised at how many people are putting that type of language on their profile if they're looking for work. So keep that in mind. Use Boolean anytime there's no filter for something that you want to click on or that you want to find. Go ahead and and put that in the Boolean term.
Yeah, great points, and I'm getting some good questions coming through. So why would I not want to use some of the shorthand or the abbreviated terms in my conceptual search? Well, the reason is you're already going to get a high volume in that conceptual search. You know, this is all about attacking one requisition and breaking it into chunks, because we're talking about a network of 313 million individuals on LinkedIn. And listen, this type of approach could apply to other mediums you use to recruit as well. But it's all about breaking your search into chunks. And by using the not modifier in this smart exclusion search, we're going to take out people we've already seen, right? So in that conceptual search, if we've run it right, we've already seen everybody that fits that particular vernacular we're searching on. And not will allow us to get those people off to the side, so to speak, and then just focus on people that might have used an abbreviation or a different version to express a job or a skill set. And I've typed over a couple examples over to everyone in the chat window, a couple examples that would reflect this. So what I'm going to do now
is remember, guys,
jump in.
I was just saying, I'm seeing a lot of really great questions come through as well. We're not going to be able to get to every single one of them just because of the sheer volume that's on the call today. But rest assured, what we'll do is we'll capture all of those questions and make sure to answer them after the session via the email that we're going to send out. So for those of you that didn't catch it in the chat, we'll be sending out the recording of this call, the slide presentation, as well as any questions that we couldn't get to. So feel free to ask away. If I can't get back to you, that's why, and we'll make sure to answer that later. Thanks so much.
Perfect. So you should all now be viewing my LinkedIn Recruiter homepage. And again, for those of you who are on the free LinkedIn platform still, that's okay. Again, a lot of these search concepts, putting together Boolean strings, the idea of breaking a search into 3 different types of searches will still apply to the searches you run on LinkedIn.com. So don't feel like you're too behind if this view doesn't look familiar to you. But for those of you who do have LinkedIn Recruiter, you know, the first place you'd want to go before you start to build this advanced search out is just create a project and get that out of the way. And this is going to be my central repository for these 3 searches and then all of the candidates that I'm considering for this role. That way I know where they reside, I know who we're considering, and then I know once we start thinking about InMail, where to go to send that second, that third follow-up InMail if I don't get a response right off the bat. So for today, I think what we'll do is I'll just use the example of a requisition that was called out. Let's call it, maybe it was an outside sales representative that needed to have a SaaS or software as a service background. So let's call this a SaaS search. Maybe our region will be San Francisco. And I can enter my requisition number, maybe a couple things about the comp if that was important to me. And then I'll open this up to my team and give them access to this. So I'll create that project. And now I've just got this out of the way right off the bat, and when I start running my searches, I can automatically tie those individuals to that search. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to go over to this advanced search tab right next to my magnifying glass. I'm going to click into that. And I'm going to use the example of our ideal state search. So remember, that was the first search we talked about where we're going to get very specific. We're going to try to clone that ideal candidate at that client site who's doing the job today. And we're almost explicitly ripping from the job description. So we're really getting down, really mirroring that job description. We're going to use maybe the exact job title and then some very specific things from the description. So maybe we'll start with the job title, and maybe we'll call this account executive. And we want this person to currently be in this role in this example. And then for some of the keywords, maybe it was SaaS for software as a service, or we could spell it out. Remember, the OR modifier is a expanding Boolean modifier, almost always going to expand your results. The AND modifier is limiting. I get a lot of questions about the difference between AND or. Just know that when you use OR almost every time, you're going to get additional results when you work that in. So I'm going to choose my location, and we'll say that this person, for the sake of argument, needs to be located in the San Francisco market, and I'll search within a 50-mile radius. So again, this is where a lot of recruiters stop, is kind of this ideal state search. This is great, but this is only going to find people who have these keywords somewhere on their profile and this job title currently in this role. Okay, this might be a high quality, but this is going to give us probably a lower volume. So I'm going to go down to this search button and click into that. So imagine if you sat down with your client and you said, hey, there are only 184 people in this market that can do this job. That's quite the daunting task, right? So this is where a lot of recruiters, I think, kind of take the path of least resistance. Is we stop here, and while these might be this might be a good place to start. Again, this is really only the beginning, and so for my ideal state search, especially if that client told me, hey, if you find somebody today that is an account executive currently in this market that has this type of sales experience, and they come from Salesforce.com, I've got my 16 people in the market that do this job, and I know, I think I did this wrong, right? Let's try this. Boom.
Yeah, Joe, you were getting some hard call-outs on that one, man.
I know.
I saw the chat panel blowing up.
I know. Good times. So at this point, right, I'm going to save this search. And I'm going to go up this upper right-hand corner. I'm going to call this my ideal state search. And then I'm going to tie this to that appropriate project folder. There it is. And I misspelled my project folder again. But I think you get the point, right? I'm a good recruiter, maybe not the world's best speller. Cut me some slack there. But so we've got our ideal state search now saved to that particular project. Right, so that brought us back a real finite amount of individuals. But again, what we want to do next with our conceptual search is cast a wider net. So who are all those sales professionals in my market that could potentially do the job, that might call themselves different things that I might have missed just by running that ideal state search with those very finite specific keywords. So what I'll do here is I'll work a conceptual search into my keyword search bar. And what you'll see here is I've got multiple titles now, account executive, or maybe that person calls themselves an account manager. Maybe they call themselves territory development. You notice I'm using multiple or statements here. And I'm including the exact title in quotation marks. I've even got a couple of abbreviations here. So why I want to start here in the keywords bar for my conceptual search is this is going to return me a larger slate of candidates, because this is pulling not just from their job title, but this is pulling from their entire LinkedIn profile. So their summary section, their headline section, all that work history section. So I want to make sure that I can get all of these people into my pipeline. So I'm going to select my
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Can I jump in and cut you off just real quick? So Grace sent me over. It was pretty funny. So Greg Bennett said he was only getting the guys who couldn't spell what they were doing when you were typing in SAS incorrectly. And I wanted to bring up the point, Greg, it's really funny, for one, and two, that goes back to trying different ways in which you might want to spell words. And like Joe was talking about, abbreviations, acronyms, everything that you wouldn't expect someone to have on their profile. Definitely something that we want to think of doing. So even though that was inadvertent, you can say that there were 13 people that did have that spelled incorrectly on their profile. I used to do a little bit of a shtick around finding engineers on LinkedIn, and I would spell engineer all kinds of different ways, and you would see these people working at Exxon. You'd see them working at Microsoft, all kinds of big companies, prestigious companies, that obviously wouldn't hire an engineer who doesn't know how to spell the word engineer. So some people even go to the length of trying to hide themselves on the network. They want to be here to just network with other individuals. They're here to read articles, to jump on Pulse. So keep that in mind. Even spelling things wrong is a really good way to maybe bring up some additional candidates that were cloaking themselves.
Yeah, that's a great point. And so it's a theory of indirect search. And when we talk about smart exclusion, it might be smart in some of your terms that you start to search for in that search to include the misspellings, like Alan was talking about. A number of engineers on the network spelling the engineer with 3 E's. So just some good food for thought. So now that we've got our conceptual search built out, we've got our geography selected. Let's run that. And then from here, we've got quite a wider audience of individuals that have been returned to us now, right? So, from here, depending on the requisition and some of that intake meeting, I think that's really important too, is when you get that order from your client, asking those targeted questions. Hey, what are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves? What type of crossover experience in lieu of maybe missing one type of experience could be accepted? And that's when you get into the creativity of how you'll be able to find additional candidates and really provide that value to your clients. So we have these filters down the left rail. You have 23 within Recruiter. And, for the sake of time, perhaps, let's say the level of degree was something that was important to the client. They needed to have a BS degree. Now we're down to the 61,000 people who have the bachelor's degree in this territory. Maybe the years of experience was important. Maybe they need to have at least 3 to 5 years of experience. And maybe the industry, right? So computer software, we could check that out. I'm always one to select crossover industries because this is a user-generated distinction. You or I select the industry we select with. So I'm always going to want to pay attention to, hey, are there other markets or industries that somebody might identify with? For here, I'm going to save this search. And now I'm going to call this my conceptual search. I'm going to tie this to my misspelled SAS search position. I'm going to leave this alert turned on. I'm going to click Save. And now we've got that locked in. So the final leg of the search we're going to run is going to be that smart exclusion search. So taking everything we just searched on from a conceptual search perspective, taking those terms out, and then including things like misspellings or including things like shorthand or abbreviation. So I'm going to go back to my advanced tab. And keep in mind, I haven't even got into the vetting process yet. I haven't even gotten into the InMail process. This is all about building my strategy, getting all my searches chunked together. And then once I've got these built out, saved, and I've got my search alert set, then I'm going to go into the business of vetting, looking through the profiles. You're going to start to use some of the techniques Alan's going to show you with looking at filters and then building commonality in those InMail messages you're sending. But for right now, we're finishing up that search portion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull my smart exclusion search that I already have built, and I'm going to paste it into this keyword bar. And so what you'll see here is at the end where I have my cursor and I've got not highlighted. So this is going to take out all the terms that I don't want to see returned to me. So again, you'll notice I've got all the things in that first conceptual search. So account executive, account manager, territory development, outside sales, all of those things after the not modifier. And I've got them enclosed in brackets. So they're all coming back as one chunk for me. And then at the beginning, I've got some shorthand. I've got some abbreviations. So things like account executive spelled this way. And then the version of account manager. This is a very common way you'll see people abbreviate manager as well. How about biz dev? If I just typed in business development, I would have missed a whole group of these people. And again, you can literally do this for any vertical you're working in, whether it's tech, whether it's healthcare, whether it's finance, whether it's executive search. You know intuitively from looking at profiles on LinkedIn every day, looking at resumes in your ATS on a daily basis, all these different ways and versions that people express the job.
Yeah, and you guys are probably asking yourself, well, why wouldn't I just do the regular keyword search with everything spelled correctly and then also include the abbreviations and the acronyms? The reason is that you want to split these searches up so that you're not piling through a million results, right? If we were to do that together, then we truly aren't going to be able to calculate the number of people that are only using abbreviations, right? So you're going to get both subsets of candidates in that pool, which is what we don't want. We want everybody on the network that hasn't used any proper terms. We only want people that have used abbreviations, and that's all. So that not modifier takes out everyone that's spelling everything correctly, that's not using any abbreviations, and it's just giving us the abbreviated candidates. That's a really important point to take home. Those are candidates that literally would not come up if we did this otherwise. So it's a really good point to take note of there.
Great point. Thanks for driving that home, Alan. So I'm going to run this search. And again, here are 894 results to Alan's point that we wouldn't have found. So again, any one of these 894 could be your next placement. And chances are your competition, other recruiters out there, haven't found these people yet either. because we're probably all searching this way by the appropriate title. If you look at the end of my keyword search here, right? So from here, you know, I can filter much in the same way. I can select that degree again if I'd like, and filter down by those components, the years of experience. And this is just giving me a baseline of what I need to have. And then saving that search. And this is going to be my smart exclusion. Again, I tie it to my project, so it's there for me. And then I've got these alerts turned on. Click Save, and it's there for me. So this tree, if you will, is these searches are going to continue to run. And now that those alerts are on, I'm going to get a digest of not only the people that are in that, that match that search, but then anybody new who hops on LinkedIn, anybody who changes their profile. Maybe they get they add another year of experience, or they get a promotion. And now I'm going to know about that and possibly be the first recruiter to reach out to that person.
Yeah, and Joe, you hit on a really good point that I wanted to double tread on, is for each one of these different tangents that Joe's been going down with his search. So he did his regular keyword search that got us like 800 results. Then he did the conceptual search that was only abbreviations and shorthand, which got us a different subset of candidates. All the while, he's saving each one of those threads of the same search, and he's setting an alert for it. So like he said, anybody new that's joining LinkedIn that fits that search criteria you're going to know about, or anybody that's already existing on LinkedIn but changes their profile to fit our search. So what's important to note is he's gone through 3 or 4 different iterations while searching on this one job requisition, and now when he comes in tomorrow, he's got 4 different strings that are working for him proactively, right, instead of just one save search alert.
Yeah, great point. So now that we've found these individuals, right, we've got our advanced process put into place. Now we've got to start to begin the business of going through those profiles. And then how are we going to sell those individuals on having a conversation with us, the individual recruiters? So I'm going to transition to Alan now, and he's going to spend a little bit of time with you talking about how we can really start to craft some meaningful messages.
Thanks, Joe. And if you could shoot me over the ball as well.
Just passed you the ball, my friend.
Thank you, sir. So with that said, you know, it's not often that Joe and I get to come together on content and deliver a call in tandem, and I knew I would gain a tremendous amount of information from him. I think anybody on this call who's been on my sessions in the past, I don't talk through these in the same way. We've got different methodologies, and that's why it's really great to also jump on general sessions like through the Learning Center as well, because you can hear a different voice, and even though it's the same content, it's being explained in different ways. Right? So with that said, let me again preface my section by saying we did read the survey from the last session. We got your feedback. We know you want to see more templates and ways to craft the actual messages. So we're going to get into that in a moment. But for those of you who didn't, these are a couple of the filters that I would suggest using if you're looking to send out more targeted in-mails. So you take everything that Joe just taught you, and then we've got these additional filters to click on once we start sending our outreach. So the first is school, which probably seems fairly basic on the surface. You know, a hiring manager wants somebody with a certain degree or who went to a certain school. You click that filter and you've got your candidate. But my challenge to you is more around using these filters strategically than that surface level method. And I'll go into some tangible examples of this in a moment and show you some actual templates that you can use to harness that school filter. Relationship. Pulling up a search, sifting through all the individuals who are a second-degree connection, and then leveraging that data to create a commonality. So the commonality you might not even know you have, right? You can see the people that you're both connected with, and from there, send out a much more targeted, much more intimate message to that person. The third is function, and we're going to talk a little bit about consulting. So within that function selection, and I'll show you this in a moment, there's a lot of different choices that you can make. Management, you know, contractor, consultant. We'll go through the consultant piece, and you know, 20% of the 313 million members on LinkedIn fall into this active category, and there's definitely different ways that we want to speak to these types of job seekers. The individuals that are part of that 80% of passive talent, they've got time for pleasantries like we're going to talk about, right? Talking about schools they went to, relationship, what groups they belong to. Contractors, consultants, active seekers don't need that. They mostly just want to hear about the job, right? So we can talk about that methodology. We're going to go through groups. Not the strongest common tie out of all of these, but it's still a great conversation starter and an effective way that you can break the ice, and I'll show you a very tangible way that you can send that through. And then lastly, which is one of my favorites, when joined. So you're pulling up individuals that are strong fits for your position who just joined the network. So you've got an opportunity to welcome that person to the site, most likely with the foreknowledge that they're seeking a networking relationship. That's why people join our network, right? And because they're so new, they don't have that social media fatigue that you might come up against if you're reaching out to someone who's been around for a while. Right? So we're going to jump into the live tool and go through some concrete examples of these methods. And remember, if there's any questions at all, Joe and Grace are monitoring the chat panel right now, and anything that we can't get to, we'll certainly answer after the call. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. So everybody should be able to see my screen right now. And I'm using the same exact search string that Joe was utilizing in his sales example. So let's continue along with that sales theme today. The first filter that we talked about utilizing is school. Now, obviously, you're going to have this broken down a little bit further, right? You'll have years of experience. You might have industry. For the purpose of our examples, we're going to keep it pretty broad today. So we would click on school, and you would pull up your own school, so wherever you graduated, right? So let's say that I went to NYU. We click on NYU. Per the keyword search, here's the 19, almost 20,000 people that fit our sales search criteria in the United States that went to NYU, which is, you know, where I'm saying that I went for this example, right? From here, let's say that we want to reach out to Joseph. We can click Send Message. And this is what the template would look like. So I've got a bunch of templates saved here where I can insert different scenarios, essentially. So school filter, same school. I know I've got my scenario. For the subject line, we're going to say insert university name and then alumni. So for this purpose, we would say NYU alumni. For the category, getting back in touch. All right, so it's a little bit softer. It's a little bit more interesting than just saying career opportunity or saying expertise request. We're not really reaching out to them for an expertise request right now. Even though in most cases I would recommend using that category, for this specific example, getting back in touch is definitely the best play. So the template reads something like, what a coincidence. I happened to come across your profile the other day and noticed that you graduated from, and then insert university name here. So you can see all of these templates that I'm working with are malleable, and I would suggest that you set those up in this way as well. The situations are going to change, the types of people that you're reaching out to are different, and then you can always insert different words into these key areas. So for us, again, graduated from NYU. That's my alma mater as well, and we even happen to be in the same field. These days, I'm a recruiter working for XYZ company with jobs in the XYZ industry and would love to help out a fellow alum. Let's connect and have a networking call this week. I'm available, and then you insert your day and time there. Looking forward to chat, Alan Beers. So even inserting your day and time and actually giving them a tangible time frame to be able to reach back out to you, I think is essential. What it does is psychologically it drives people to actually look at their calendar instead of leaving it open-ended and ambiguous. If we leave it open-ended, we know what happens. It goes into somebody's archive folder. They say, I'll get back to it later. Then they go home. They've got happy hour, dinner to make, whatever it is, and they forget about it. Right? But if we drive them to their calendar right away, then hopefully we get that call set up. So that's one of the school filters that we can utilize. Let's switch gears here and say that it wasn't us, but it was the actual hiring manager at the client site or somebody that's involved in the hiring process that went to NYU. Because eventually you're going to run out of great candidates that went to your same school. This works for a while. And then we have to kind of switch gears, but we can still use the same filter. So we'll go to our template. From here, we're going to say school filter hiring manager. So expertise request, I would definitely utilize here. From there, you're just inserting the school name again and saying alumni after it. And from here, again, it's going to look pretty similar to the last message that we sent, but we're changing gears a little bit. So again, what a coincidence, happened to come across your profile, so on and so forth. I'm a consultant for XYZ company, and we're hiring for a sales position. And then this is kind of where it gets good, and this is the big sell. So the hiring manager at my client also went to NYU, and I'm sure you two would have a lot to talk about. This would be a great opportunity for you to connect, even if you aren't looking for a new position. All right, so do you have a few minutes for a quick call to network and discuss the opportunity? I'm available, and then again, insert that tangible time frame. What I really like about this method and strategy is if we get past this first call, they are a strong candidate, right, and we get them to the interview phase, we're setting up a commonality now between the hiring manager who has to make a decision and the actual candidate. And that's extremely powerful, and there's not a lot of people that are thinking this far ahead into the process, right? We're typically looking for skill sets. We want to find people that are good on the phone, and then we're going to send out our submittal. If you're using filters like this, and again, thinking strategically about how we can utilize them, you're setting your candidates up for strong conversations with the interviewer down the road. And we all know sometimes it's not always the best person with the best skill set that gets the job. Sometimes it's who you're affiliated, what you're affiliated with, people that you've known in the past, and alumni ties are very strong. So those are the two different methods that I would use if you're going to utilize that school filter. And you can be very proactive about doing that. So let's take NYU off and move on to relationship, which I think is the most powerful driver to send a targeted InMail. So from here, we click on relationship, second degree connection. So here's everyone, so 352,000 people, and again, using Joe's method, you'd probably have this down to like 10 or 15 people, that are only 1 degree of separation away from you. So you're looking to know this person, and somebody you know already knows them, right? So you've got that common tie. So let's say, for example, that we wanted to go for Christine. We had a good position for her. We can click on Christine, and when you send a one-to-one message, it's going to show you people that you know in common. So like Kevin Varadian, Aaron Dolinsky, Kyle Pohl, these are all people that I work with on a day-to-day basis. If I really wanted to recruit Christine, I would walk down to Aaron or Kyle, and I would say, hey, do you mind facilitating an introduction? Even better, I know you're super busy. Do you mind if I just drop your name in a message I'm going to send this person? And of course, they would say sure. And then that way you at least get a little referral in there too, because if they know Christine and Christine's no good, then you know not to reach out anyway. So the template that I have set up for this is my relationship filter, second degree. Again, expertise request. We never want to talk about the job up front. You know, if they know you're just presenting like a job rec to them, and they think that that's what you're trying to put forth within the category and the subject line, then they're just going to move on to the next one, right? So we want to get them to click through that first and then jump into the actual body of the message. So again, expertise request, and then mutual connection and insert name. So for me here, it'd be mutual connection, Aaron Dolinsky. Right, so it's a pleasure to introduce myself. I ran into Aaron Dolinsky this week, and your name happened to come up in our conversation. Aaron spoke very highly of you and suggested we have a networking call. I work in the sales space, and our company always has fantastic positions for people with your level of expertise. Even if you're not currently available for a new role, I'd love to be a resource and make a brief connection. I'm available, and then again, as always, insert the concrete day and time. And notice that in all of my messages, at some point, I divert away from the fact that if you're not interested in this specific role, let's still talk. That's key, because you pipeline that person and then you fill the next job when they're ready to roll, or you get a referral out of them if you get them on the phone. So that's the relationship filter. Works really well, especially when you know the person. That's that common connection. Now, as recruiters, sometimes you're going to pull people up that you don't know. Maybe you added them as a first-degree connection a long time ago, but in most cases, for those of us with good networks, this is going to work extremely well. So that's another way we can get into somebody's inbox in a targeted way. So from here, we were talking about function. So if we go down to the function filter, like I said, there's a lot of different selections that you have here. Right now we're going after people that are claiming they're in consulting as a function. And let's say, for example, we want to go after Rebecca Feldman for a position here. We've got a contracting or consulting role. Let's go to our template, and we can jump into function consulting filter. And this is where it gets extremely different from everything that we've talked about so far. So we've been very passive with all these messages. It's very soft. It's a lot about networking. It's about who you know, commonalities that you share. This is more about the position, but you still have to be strategic about the way in which you're sending it. So it shouldn't look like a message that you would send on Career Builder or Monster, because we've still got ties here. So consulting offer for the category, we're being very upfront. Consulting opportunity for the subject line, very straightforward. So I came across your profile today and noticed that you have a wealth of experience in the sales space. Your background in software sales at Oracle is exactly what we're looking for, and I would love to have a call with you. My client's company has an amazing culture, and this is an opportunity to work in one of their most sought-after teams. And then you're going to insert some perks and selling points at this point in time. And this is where, you know, when you're having your download calls with client managers and they're telling you all about their requisitions, you're going over, you're getting the specs, this is where it's time on the forefront to dig a little bit deeper into what it's like to work at that client company, and those are the things that we can interject into the InMail. So is it free lunch every day? Is it ping pong in the break room? Is it great health care? Is it a culture of upward mobility? What is it about working for your client that you want to sell in this InMail? Because that's what a contractor is going to leave an assignment for and jump on your gig. Right, so you also want to convey urgency. Positions that are contracting and consulting by nature tend to go very quick, and it's a heavy market. So you want to say something like, this is a competitive position, so I'd like to talk to you as soon as possible if you're available and interested. If not, it would be fantastic to have a networking call. So that's contracting, consulting. So let's take that one off and dive into groups. Let's stay on the theme that we're looking for an active seeker right now. When I was monitoring the chat when Joe was presenting, I saw a lot of questions come through about, well, how can I target actual active seekers? There's a really good way to do that within a group, and I'll show you how. So we've got our strong Boolean string up here that's giving us 6 million results. 6 million in the United States is a lot of people, and that's a really strong data set of things they're interested in. So out of all those 6 million people, if we go down to all groups, this is the top group that they're a part of: job openings, job leads, job connections. 155,000 out of the 6 million belong to this group. So we can click on the group. And for those of you that were asking, okay, now how do I find the active seekers? It really just goes back to the Boolean string. I'm going to completely delete my skills string, and I'm just going to say things like looking or seeking or new assignment. And the list goes on and on and on, right? We can probably think about 30 different words and phrases that would indicate an active seeker. So I encourage everybody to kind of do that on your own. If we go ahead and hit search, now mind you, we're still in that group, right? So we know these people should be either on the sales side or close to it. And as we scroll down, looking for new opportunity, seeking a new career, technical designer, seeking new opportunity. So we could even say, and sales, just to make this a little bit more relevant. And then you break it down even further. So here you go. So kind of jumping into, I think I saw it, shouldn't you put new assignment in quotations? You should. That's a good point. I put it in parentheses by accident. Sorry about that. So yeah, you'd get even more people if I would have done that right. There you go. Right. So from here, we still want to leverage that group tie. So we can go to somebody like Bill here, send our message, back up to the templates and click on groups. So expertise request, insert group name, let's connect. So job openings group, let's connect. Right. I couldn't help but notice that we're well connected on LinkedIn and belong to a lot of the same groups. I'm a consultant with XYZ company and would love to have a conversation with you about a career opportunity. Do you have a moment to chat? And then you insert the day and time. And again, this is where I think it gets interesting. So what you actually do is you go into that specific group, find an interesting or related article that somebody posted, and then copy and paste that in. So on a side note, I'm not sure if you caught the article on business development that was posted in the jobs group discussion thread, but I think you would find it interesting given your background. I linked it here for you. You insert that link, and now all of a sudden you became a thought leader and a consultant, not just a recruiter that's reaching out about one specific job. This is somebody that probably wants to stay in touch with you because you've taken the time to show value, and it was super easy to do. Right? They don't know that we have all these amazing tools that we're using to reach out and find them in such a data-driven way. Right? So that's groups. And then lastly, the when joined filter, which we were talking about earlier. I would say relationship and when joined, probably my two favorite. So if I click on when joined, here's the 133 people that fit our criteria that joined a day ago. Let's say it's Eloisa we wanted to reach out to. We know she wasn't on LinkedIn 2 days ago. Something changed with her situation. So we go to the when joined filter. And this is all about just welcoming them into the network. And again, kind of like pasting that link from the group, it's just about being consultative and getting them on the phone. So expertise request, again, for the category. Welcome to LinkedIn is the subject, kind of jovial, right? And in the message, welcome. I happened to come across your profile today and noticed that you recently joined the network. I'm a consultant for XYZ company working in the sales industry. I know when I first joined LinkedIn that it was hard to begin to network with people. So I thought I would reach out and start a conversation given your fantastic background. I always have interesting positions in that space and would love to have a networking call with you. And then you kind of close it like we did all the others. So imagine when you first joined LinkedIn, right? Like we all didn't know how to use this properly. We were doing searches all over the place, reaching out to random people, connecting with everybody that came through. You're really providing a value for this individual who just joined LinkedIn, and you're going into it with a lot of knowledge as well. So if 313 million people, which we've been talking about all day, it's a huge, huge network. There's a reason that somebody joins this late in the game, and it's usually because they're working, they're happy, they think they have a big network, and then something changes, like unfortunately they lose their job. Maybe they just didn't have time to create a profile. They're super busy, super engaged in their position. Whatever it is, you know that situation changed, and you can capitalize on that and help them out. So this is a great way to kind of get through that barrier, and I don't think it's too creepy. Right? They're going to know that you know they just joined LinkedIn, but nonetheless, I think the value outweighs sort of that factor that you had that information. I saw a chat come through as well. This is something that Joe wanted me to cover, and I was going to graze over it, but I'll cover it super quick. We've only got a couple minutes left. How do you create a template? Super quick. You go up here to your inbox in LinkedIn Recruiter. You can go to templates right here, and then hit this little plus button and template. And you fill it out, hit save. You can share it with your team. When you click save, it'll give you that option to either keep it private or share it with your team. And you're good to go.
That's the best way to do it, this way Alan's showing you. The other way you could do it is if you were just organically sending a one-to-one InMail from recruiter to a candidate, if you like that message that you crafted, you also have the ability to save it directly from that view.
Yeah, let me show you that real quick. It's a good point, Joe.
I like the first way you showed too, because it kind of gets it out of the way.
Yeah. I like getting, so same thing with projects like Joe showed. If you're coming in the morning and you've got your 3 requisitions that you want to work on today, just set those projects up right away. And then you've got places to filter people, you know. And if you're doing a sales position that's like inside sales, and then you're also doing a biz dev position at the same time, maybe while doing your inside sales search, you come across a great biz dev person, then that folder's already set up and you can just start shipping people in there and reaching out to them later when you're ready to change gears. So like Joe was saying, if I send a message to somebody on the fly and I write something that's really compelling, I can just say save as a template and name it. For those of you, again, that don't have LinkedIn Recruiter, again, think about today a lot less about the functionality of what LinkedIn Recruiter does, and think of it more about the methodologies, right? It's more about the strategy that you can employ, and everything that we're talking about today in terms of what makes a really good InMail still just makes a really good email, or still just makes a really good connection request.
Or
so
really
even
good
if you're not,
if I could jump in,
or a really good voicemail.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great point. So any medium you're using in which to reach out to these people, all of these same methods still still apply. So don't get too caught up on the functionality. It's more about the theory behind it than anything today. So that's about all we wanted to touch on today. We're getting close to time. Joe and I both don't have hard stops at 3 Eastern, so we're going to hang on the line a little bit longer and pull up the chat panel. If you have any other questions for us, feel free to send those over. We'll answer as much as we can or what's relevant to today's call, and then like I said, we'll be going through answering whatever we haven't and sending it out in the email with the recording and the slide presentation. Just to clarify, not going to be sending out the templates. The purpose of today is to give you ideas around writing your own templates. If we were all using the same exact template, then I think everybody on this call is going to see their InMail response rate drop, right? Because candidates are going to start saying, why is every single recruiter on LinkedIn sending me the same exact template? So create your own templates, but you've got the formula in which to do it, and you've got the methodology and the theory behind it. Thanks, everybody. Again, we'll be on the chat if you need anything for a few more minutes.
Yeah, and I know Grace has been doing a good job of kind of keeping up with that. I know I've been able to answer a few as well, so we'll get to these as best we can. And great job, Alan. That was awesome.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, everybody.
Great job, guys. And everyone, just a reminder, if you could just send your questions to all panelists, that way Joe and Alan can see them as well, that would be great. Thanks, guys.
So yeah, so there's a question around the Boolean operators that we support on LinkedIn. So I'm going to chat those over to you in the chat panel right now. It is a little bit different than some of the other mediums. So we support and, or, not, the parentheses, and quotation marks. Our search algorithms don't fully support the asterisks, don't fully support the up or the word boosting, as well as proximity. You can try to use those in your searches on LinkedIn. The problem is there will be some false positives that are returned. So my advice and recommendation to you to try to make sure you're getting 100% of the results you're looking for 100% of the time, please limit your Boolean usage to the 5 operators that I chatted over to you in the chat window. So it's and, or, not, quotation marks, in parentheses. Final note on that, when you use and, or, and not, those need to be capitalized. So those are case sensitive per the way the algorithm works.
There's a question that came through from Judd. Actually, I'm sorry. Judd just said it was a good call. I appreciate that. Oh, there's a lot of questions going through, so let me find the one I was going to address. It's from Gene, actually. Is there a way to filter searches to exclude candidates initially contacted? Yeah, there actually is. So let me dive back into the tool real quick since I have control here. And keep sending your questions through. I'll continue to try to monitor them, and Joe will as well. So basically, let's say I wanted to see everybody out of these 133 results that I didn't message yet. And this works really great when you're working within the project as well. Excuse me, as well. You can go here to people with, change this to without, and then messages. So this is every single person that you have not messaged. This also works great if you want to send your follow-up messages out, right? So maybe per this search, I want to actually see everybody that I have messaged and go from there. All right, so that's everybody I've already messaged, and now I can send that follow-up.
Really good question from Jade, and this kind of goes back, Alan, to some of the InMail, I think, conversation starters you looked at with the refinement filters is, how would you suggest to word a voicemail for candidates who leave their phone numbers listed as open on their profile? So, I would leave a quick voicemail, much in the same vein of some of the templates, some of the best practices Alan was talking about. So, I'd reference, why I was calling, how I came across their information. If there's an alumni connection, I'm going to reference that. If we know somebody in common through our networks, I'm going to reference that. So the great thing about, a lot of what you can find in these refinement searches is it's going to stack the deck in your favor to help you get that conversation started. So I would mention any and all commonality. And if you don't have a commonality, I would still reference something you saw on their LinkedIn profile about their background, possibly their current role. And that's going to be a whole lot different than if you just found their name in a phone book and left them kind of a generic voicemail with your elevator pitch.
Yeah, that's a great point, Joe. And to double click on what he said, every one of those templates that we went through today can be applied right to that message that you're sending out. Like even if it's not a voicemail and they pick the phone up, how much more powerful is it to say, I came across your profile on LinkedIn, and I see that you know Joe Smith. I was friends with Joe for 5 years. How do you guys know each other? You know, by the way, we work in the same space, and I've got a great sales position to talk to you about. That's so much more powerful and so much more sticky, as we say here at LinkedIn, for better or for worse, in terms of what's going to work and what's not. I also saw another question come through, a really good one from Judd. Do you recommend sending another message to those that haven't replied? You know, the problem is you've got InMail response rate that you have to deal with, which is a very valid point. You know, it costs another InMail credit. So in my opinion, it's a lot about timing as well. No matter how good your templates are, if you're reaching out to somebody at a really bad time, they don't know you yet, right? So it's very easy for them to ignore the message, put it in their archive folder, and forget about it. But what if, you know, 2 months later, you reach out to that same person again, and now they're ready to make a jump, or now they're just more open to having a networking conversation, and you can get them in your pipeline, right? So I think you want to be discerning. If someone's like an amazing candidate, and you know if you get them on the hook that you can place them, then I think it's worth sending another InMail. Absolutely. Joe, anything else that you wanted to jump on?
I'm chatting over a couple replies to some questions I'm getting in the chat window, but I'm just trying to get through a question. There was a question from Jeff around InMail limit. You know, it's right around 1,900 characters. I think it's best to not try to get to the limit. I think that's way too long for an InMail, especially if it's a first InMail. You know, I think as you've got that conversation started, if there's some interest from the candidate, absolutely, maybe you can go a little bit more long form. I think that the point is to build the connection on LinkedIn and eventually take it offline. You know, that's really the value that LinkedIn can provide you, is to be the source of hire to the best talent. And ultimately, once you start to build that connection, you're going to take it offline, whether it's on the phone or a personal email. In that first InMail, you should probably aim for, you know, right around the 230, 240 character mark. We've tested that out. That amount of characters actually fits really well on a smartphone screen. Especially considering now we get so much unique traffic on our mobile app, and so many passive candidates are on the app and are communicating with recruiters mobilely. So, you know, I think right around 255 characters is kind of a potential sweet spot for that first InMail.
Yeah, and I mean, to that same point, if you're talking character limit, you know, there's a reason Twitter came out of the gate when they went public and traded for like over $40 a share first day, right? They figured something out, which is, of the human psyche, we don't want to read a whole ton of stuff, and typically we want people to get to the point. We're all super busy. We're all getting tons of communication from people on a regular basis. And to Joe's point, like you said, it fits on the mobile piece as well, right? So, you know, we're getting close to 50% of our usership logging in through mobile versus the desktop. That's huge. It's a sea change in the way in which they're going to consume that content that you're sending them. So it's a great point. It's kind of just hearkening back to what we've always talked about here at LinkedIn, which is if you've been on the InMail general sessions forever now, it's just short and sweet. That's the big key takeaway. Short and sweet, commonalities work really well.
Question from Linda, and Alan, I actually want to kind of forward this to you because I haven't thought about this. I can't remember if I've tried this before, but for instance, if you were abbreviating manager in a search and that person had, for instance, maybe like a period at the end of manager, would you need to include that period at the end of manager? I believe you would, if you wanted to find that person with that distinction or that type of title.
Yeah, Linda, that's a really weird one. And weird in the way in which we handle it as a company. So, anything, you know, like a period, a comma, has to be in quotations. Oddly enough, so like if you're going to do MGR period, nothing will actually come up. It'll bring you back 0 results because it messes with the search algorithm. So you have to put quotation mark. Well, let me just show you as I'm strolling away from my desk. MGR period, and then back in the quotations. So anything with a period, a comma, and exclamation point has to be within that quotation field. Anything else, Joe? I saw some more questions coming through. You know, again, obviously they're coming through pretty rapidly. So if we missed any of yours, we apologize. But I think we're going to wrap up here in a moment. Maybe we'll take 1 or 2 more questions. So shoot them over if you have it, and then we'll collect the rest and send you out some answers.
Yeah, there's a question around, and I'm trying to get to these as quickly as I can in the chat window. It seems to be the quickest way to get back to a lot of you, and I really appreciate all the questions. There's a good one around saved searches. Can you edit a saved search? Yes, you can. You would just go into that saved search, then go to Save As, and you'd be able to edit it. I believe there's a Save and a Save As option, but all you would need to do is just click into that search and execute that.
Yeah, I had a really good one from Jeff Brooks as well. So why will LinkedIn display results of words individually, even if using quotations isn't the point of quotes to filter only the exact phrase? Yeah, precisely. So like if we wanted to say sales manager and we wanted those words to have to appear back to back, we would say sales manager. And I know exactly what you're saying. So it'll highlight the word sales somewhere. It'll highlight the words manager. Let's see if we can find an example of it. Not seeing any right now, but I know for sure it does happen. I'm right there with you. Like it'll just say sales without manager. Somewhere on that profile, even though it's not displaying it in the preview, they have sales manager back to back. So the quotes are working. It just might not be in the preview, and they want you to see that they're capturing those words.
Awesome. Well, Alan, I think we're about ready to get kicked off the audio here. So what we'll do is we'll try to anybody we didn't get to, we'll try to get the questions or the chat list automated and out to us, and we'll try to, as best we can, hopefully get out and answer your questions. But for those of you who did attend, I believe we will have a recording for today's call for you to have. And other than that, Grace, Alan, I'm good.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We had some really great feedback coming through the chat panel, and we really appreciate all the kind words. So we're glad you got value out of it today, and we'll be talking to you soon. So we'll see you guys later.
Yep. Thanks everyone.
Good luck everyone.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Awesome job.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye.